Okay. My name is Chad Klein. I am an account manager here at Paladin, and I've been working here for about almost 3 years. Come 10 days from now, 3 years will be my date. Love working here. It's wonderful. I was just telling everyone who was here before that we've got a whole bunch of snow outside the window, about 2 feet, a little bit more than 2 feet actually, and the winter warning in effect today to get more. So it's awesome. We got a nice cozy building, tons of snow, and a hot cup of coffee. I hope you all have the same. Let's go ahead and get started here. So we're going to be talking about accounts receivable for everyone. This is a really large open topic. In the half an hour that I have today, I will not be able to cover everything accounts receivable, but I tried to jam as much as I could into this short little session that we have today. So hopefully we cover some good things for you. I'll go ahead and open it up for some questions at the end, but if you guys ever need any more training or one of your questions does not get answered today, keep in mind we have a training department. Many stores, unbeknownst to them, still have a few hours in their, let's call it training bank, available to them, a free training time that wouldn't be a bad time to set up a, an hour-long Q&A session with one of our trainers and just kind of fill in all the little gaps of your Paladin knowledge that you may be missing and maybe don't have time to sit down and really figure out. And if for some reason you don't have any time available left to you from your initial purchase of Paladin, I believe training hours are $95 an hour, and lots of times they can save us a considerable amount of time just by learning the correct path to do things. So please keep in mind that they're available and use that as a resource. All right, so today we're going to talk about setting up a charge account. We're going to start with the basics. We're going to move into open item versus balance forward, make sure that everyone understands the difference between those two things. That can be kind of a bone of contention with many people's understanding. I want to show how to accept and applying payments. There's a few different places that we can do that, and certain situations would require us to use one over the other. So we're going to talk about that and make sure everyone's doing it right. Prompt payment discounts. There's some different ways to discount these statements, and we're going to talk about those. The specific one I want to talk about is prompt payment discounts, but we might get into trade discounts a little bit as well. There's some additional settings in there. I just called it additional settings because that's truly what they are. Right there in the customer module, there's some just additional settings. I want to kind of go through each one of those, make sure that everybody knows how they function, what they do, when we should use them. Then there's the Receivable tab in the Paladin configuration. Now, a lot of people may not have access to this. That's in the file setup, kind of the back office, how we make sure that everything's thinking like we want it to think. We're going to go over those little things and make sure that everyone knows what some of those mean as well. Sending statements, we're just going to quickly review how to do that, probably preach into the choir for most people here on how to send statements, but just going to go over it again, make sure that everyone knows, kind of real basic, and then creating the reports. Any sort of accounting reports that we need, just kind of talk about how you do your summary report or maybe some late payment notices, that sort of thing. So let's get started here. Okay, I'm going to be jumping back and forth. This is, I've got slides here, but I do want to hop into Paladin, make sure that I'm not losing anybody. If we have some people here who might be their first couple weeks with Paladin, they're not super familiar and intimate with these screens yet, and they don't know that, oh, hey, this add customer screen is right there, hit F2 in the customer module. They may not have that level. So I'm going to kind of hop back and forth between these slides and Paladin to make sure that everybody is aware of all the stuff that we're talking about here. Oops, I think I just brought up my face again. Okay. So setting up the charge account. In Paladin Point of Sale, you got to be in the Customers module, and as we know from previous webinars, if we've looked at those, we can click on the module itself, or if you're more of a keyboard person, you can press Alt and the corresponding number on the keyboard, which is 2 to get into the Customer module. Alt 1 brings up Invoice Quote, Alt 3, Inventory, etc. On the bottom ribbon, you want to click Add Customer, or press F2. Now it's going to pop up a little Add Customer window, or wizard as I like to call them. You got to enter the customer's information. Anything with an asterisk, that little red asterisk, is a required field. So you have to put something in there in order to make it so. In order to hit F12 Add, you have to have information in one of those asterisk fields. See, on address and city, they're not required fields, so you could go ahead and leave those blank. But credit limit, we do want something there. Credit limit, you have to put something there to add a customer. Now, you can put 0. 0 is an acceptable value to add to a charge account. And I'd like to talk about that for 1 second here. As people, and this screen doesn't necessarily promote this idea here because it kind of says, hey, well, you have to have a credit limit in order to add a customer, forgetting that you can just go ahead and add 0 as a credit limit. As I call accounts and interact with businesses, I find a lot of people, the majority of people in fact, are only collecting customer information on the people that they extend lines of credit to, on their charge account customers. And that's fine. Of course, we need to know who the people are who owe us money and we extend lines of credit to. I mean, in fact, most people use customer account and charge account as synonymous because they just don't collect information on people they don't extend lines of credit to. And I'm anti that. I think when in doubt, obviously we can't collect everyone's information every time, but I think that when in doubt, collect customer information. Always. I don't care if we're not giving them a credit limit. We want to put that as 0. It's going to make customer service way better. If we ever have a service that we need to do on anything we've sold to that customer, a return, or any just questions that they have about their purchase order history, we're going to be able to go ahead and get that customer whatever they're looking for much quicker, much easier. It's just going to be a better experience for the customer, and it's going to be better for you guys as well. I always ask people 3 questions, kind of based off of the 80-20 rule that everyone's familiar with. You know, we've got 20% of our customers in almost every store bringing in 80% of the profit. Well, question 1 is, who are your 20%ers? Question 2 is, what are they buying? And question 3 is, what are you doing to make them love you? And if you can't answer question 1, who are my 20%ers, who are the people buying the most things, charge account or not charge account, doesn't matter, then you certainly can't even begin to answer question 2 or 3. And then extend to them additional services based off of what they're buying and make them love you a little bit more. So really comes down to customer service and giving the customer the best experience they can in your store. Know who they are when in doubt. Okay, that's enough preaching to you guys about that. Go ahead and once you've added all this stuff in there, F12 add, we'll go ahead and create the customer account. And I'm going to go into Paladin and do this. I want to get a few slides in, and then I'll hop into Paladin. We'll go back in time and show you a few of these things here. So open item versus balance forward. Balance forward and open item are 2 different types of charge accounts and are going to act a little bit differently. So balance forward, your payments are automatically applied to the customer's balance and reduce the total balance owed. Kind of, you know, first in, first out sort of thing. Customer owes you $100, they make an ROA of $10, they now owe you $90. Simple as that. Unless a customer is paying, you know, contractors, government buildings, or government offices, things like that. Unless someone's paying off, here is invoice number 5 for $35.16. And that one should be applied to 1 invoice. Don't do open item. When in doubt, do balance forward. It's always easier. I'm a big fan of going down the road that requires me to do less manual steps, and that certainly is balance forward. Now, that's not to say that you don't have to use open item. You certainly do sometimes when customers are paying off those invoices one at a time. It just works a whole lot better to go ahead and apply them to the correct invoice, make your accountant happy, make their accountant happy, and call it a day. But when in doubt, try to do balance forward. Don't get stuck in a rut of doing open items simply because we've just always done it that way, or that's the way the previous system worked, or maybe we didn't even have a previous system and we were matching up each little check that came in to the ticket, and then we would file that away once that ticket was paid for. You know, that's a great way of tracking it, but Paladin's tracking everything now, so unless they're paying it off one by one and that's how the customer asks for you to do it, I would very much recommend going down the road of balance forward. It's just a lot easier, going to save you a lot of time. Okay, accepting and applying payments. Again, I'm going to go back to Paladin here, but we're going to go a few more slides. Still in the customers module here, open item and balance forward account payments are made in either the invoice quote module or the customers module. So there's 2 different places we can take a payment. Don't get confused here. The reason that we did that is some people were complaining that their accountants did not have access via those settings and permissions to the invoice quote screen, because why would the accountant need to ring someone up ever? And vice versa, the clerks sometimes didn't have access to the customer module because they don't need to be going in and doing customer type things. However, as we just talked, I do like having clerks having the ability to add customers so they can collect customer information when in doubt, right? But that was the reason we kind of did that. Keep in mind that if you are accepting a payment in the customer module, not in the invoice quote module, but in the customer module, the only type of payment you can accept is check. I mean, I suppose you could put cash in there, but it's going to ask for a check number. It's expecting a check in there, and if you're doing cash, please, you know, put it in the right spot, which would be the invoice quote, and then it'll take you over to the tender type, and you can say, hey, we're paying off this with a credit card even, or a check, or cash, or however we're doing that. So 2 different spots. Customer module can only accept check. The invoice quote module can accept whatever method we want. Now we're about to hop over to Paladin, but let's get through this one guy here to finalize accepting and payment and applying the payments. So we've now accepted the payment for a balance forward account. We don't have to do anything. What's done is done. It's going to minus off the running total that the customer has and leave that balance. For the open item accounts, however, after we accept a payment, I like to think of it like a payment purgatory almost. It goes into this little like holding spot for this customer that we then have to go and tell Paladin what to do with it, and we need to apply it to the correct invoices. So down at the bottom we have the payment management window. That is F6. It's at the customers module. I'll show you guys in just a second here. And then that will bring up, and I've just got the top of this screen, the little wizard that it pops up displayed in my slide. It says payment management there. We can see the credit invoices on the right-hand side. Those are the ROAs, the received on accounts that we've accepted from the customer, the payments that we've accepted for the customer, with the amount there, the invoice number. And then we need to go over and find the correct corresponding invoice that is still open and unpaid for on the left-hand side once we have the right one selected. So select the right-hand one, go over, find the corresponding one on the left-hand side, and double-click it. That will take the payment that you have selected and apply it to the one that you double-click. If the payment does not cover the total invoice amount, then the remaining balance is still displayed of the payment, and you can apply that to a different invoice. And on the flip side, if it's not enough to cover the whole of the invoice, then the invoice will stay open and will display the remaining balance. So you'll have to take another payment and apply it to count for the rest of that invoice. Okay, let's hop over to Paladin here. Let me go back in time with my slides to make sure I don't forget anything in telling you here, as we've kind of blasted through about 5 or 6 different things here in the last few moments. There we go. So you guys know, Alt-Tab on your keyboard brings up this cool little wizard. See this thing? And I can go through and select all the different things that I have up by just holding down Alt and then hitting Tab and going through and selecting them. But I want Paladin. There we go. Bringing up a little trick there. Okay, so let's set up a charge account. Let's go in here to Go Customers. And without a customer being pulled up, notice this is all blank, we've got Add Customer. Now as soon as I pull up a customer, that changes to Delete Customer, so don't get confused. Let's add a customer here. We are going to add Chad K. I added Chad Klein yesterday, so he's already in there. So we're going to add Chad K. We're just going to say test, city, state. Let's go Oregon here. We'll make it semi-correct. And we trust me a lot, so we're going to give me a $9 million credit limit here. I'm a pretty trusting guy, so you'll get your money back. Okay, and then I just hit Add. That was either clicking the bottom right-hand corner little button or F12 on the keyboard to add the customer. Now we're in there. And if we look over here in the Credit tab, we can see, hey, look at that. We got a $9,000 credit limit. Okay, now Open Item versus Balance Forward. I'm right here in the Credit tab, Balance Forward. If the little dot is in the Balance Forward bucket, it's a Balance Forward account. If the dot is in the Open Items bucket, it's an Open Item account. Pretty simple stuff there. Oops, excuse me. Doesn't like it when I interact with a different screen. It likes to bring my slides to the forefront again. Okay, so accepting and applying payments here. The first place that we're going to talk about accepting via payment is right here, F5, Account Payment. Notice I've got myself pulled up here, Account Payment. I can go ahead and accept the payment into this field right here. Now this is for checks. Remember me telling you guys that the customer module is really the only place that we want to accept a check. Well, we can accept check, but we can only accept check here. We wouldn't want to accept cash or credit card or any other revenue type here. If they've earned any discount, you can always apply the discounts. Paladin is set up to, now we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but Paladin's not set up to say, hey, by the 10th, I want you to hit this customer with with a discount. If you've been scouring the software, there's no place to put in there your terms, like by the 10th. It's just going to say, hey, here's the discount that's allowed. And if you want to apply it, you can apply it or not. So it'll show you what discount the customer has earned if you have them set up for some sort of prompt payment discount or what have you. But it will not apply it until you manually apply it there, at least in regards to the prompt payment discount. The reason for that is, let's say if we have a really good contractor of ours and he took a vacation and maybe didn't think about you guys and he came in on the 11th to pay it off. Well, I mean, he's been a good customer for the last year or two. We may not want to disrespect that history that we have with him and not offer him his discount because he's 24 hours, one day past the time that he's supposed to do it. No, we'd still want to give him that discount probably. So here we don't have it automated, so you can kind of choose at the time one-off. Do we want to give this customer that discount or do we not? Right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the discounting here in a few minutes. But here's the amount of payment, and then you put your check number in there and then accept it. Now, the place that we accept it there in the invoice quote, now, why can't I do it? There's no accept payment button here. Where is that? Well, because I don't have a customer pulled up, right? If I don't have a customer pulled up, then it's not going to know where to apply this payment. So we got to start there. I'm going to go Chad K, pull me up with my awesome credit limit there, and look at that. My F5 now becomes account payment because I have a customer pulled up. Same thing, we can see the current they due, the past due, any discount earned. We can go ahead and put their payment in right here. We can even put a note in there. Customer was awesome. And now we can go ahead, check out, and accept any of the revenue types, cash, credit card, check from there. If we're in the habit of allowing people to pay off the charge account with a credit card, then I'm almost of the opinion that you shouldn't even extend them a line of credit at all. And perhaps I'm living in a unicorn world of perfection over here and not in reality. But if you're just moving credit around, that's what a credit card is, right? It's just another line of credit, except it's backed by Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. So if a customer's like, oh, I'm going to pay this off with a credit card, well, let's just cut out the middleman here, take the credit card, put it as a credit card on file, and then charge that every time. Let's move the line of credit. Let's move the risk over to the credit card companies who can afford not to be paid $100,000. I bet you a lot of the stores listening today cannot afford a loss of $100,000 if one of their accounts goes delinquent in that size, right? Might not happen too often, but it's some scary stuff. So when in doubt, lean on the credit card company. Store the credit card on file and don't extend the line of credit to the customer. Obviously, that's not a thing that we can do every time, but when in doubt, if someone's maybe the first time and we don't have a history built between you and them, there's no relationship or trust there, then say, hey, I'd be happy to extend you a line of credit, but we've got to have some rapport and relationship between us. So let's go ahead and see, put a credit card on file, and let's have you pay for that for a couple months, and then if we can rediscuss extending you an in-store line of credit at that time. I was in a store, probably about a year ago now, and they had this big old poster on the wall, and one of them was this really well-to-do guy with this safe, and it was overflowing with gold and cash, and he was sitting there smoking his cigar and looking all fancy, and it said cash only over him, right? And then underneath him it had this guy destitute with like rags in his clothes, and he's sitting there and not looking great, and his safe is open and there's tons of IOUs coming out of it, and he's got this sad look on his face, and it said sold off credit, right? And so there's just, obviously we can't not sell off credit ever, but I think that sometimes we get a little bit credit happy, and we should certainly try, when in doubt, to reduce the lines of credit that we offer. It just reduces the risk. Okay, I'm going to pause right here, see if we have any questions. Jenny, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we do. I was actually just responding to Dave and telling him that you would answer it to the whole class here. It's a really good question.
Yeah,
Dave Wolf says sometimes an account payment is accepted but doesn't match the amount due, and the account becomes what he calls out of balance. And then essentially you have to give the customer the difference. is there a way to do so without creating an invoice that the customer will receive? Or can I give him a discount?
So the customer is paying off an amount that's less than the total that the customer owes?
Not necessarily. We may want to unmute Dave because this could go both ways.
Go ahead and
it could
unmute
be an
Dave. I'd
overpayment.
like to hear his question from him.
All right.
Sorry, Dave.
Grab
I'm going to make you define it a little bit more.
Here.
Also, Jenny, I just realized I'm doing this whole thing through speakerphone. I don't even need the headset. Can everyone hear me okay?
I think so.
Yeah,
I can.
Okay, good,
Dave,
good.
So go ahead and go ahead and say your question so we're fully understanding what you're asking.
Okay, occasionally we have payments that are accepted over a period of time, and you get $2 or $3 out, a little difference, maybe it might be sales tax. You don't know where to pick that up at. I would like to be able to balance that account with the customer not receiving an invoice on a payment because that throws them in a tizzy about where that came from. And
Sure.
so I would like to be able to bypass that.
I would go ahead and just discount it away. Yeah, just go ahead. Whatever the difference in the amount is, just put it in the discount field. Maybe even use the accepting payment in the customer module or in the invoice quote. Excuse me. So that way you can put a note in there as kind of why the discount. Discount given for make up small delinquent account or something like that. Put in a note that tells your future self what you did in the past. But yeah, discounting that would be fine.
Okay, and it would play out okay on the customer side. They would not see that, or would,
let's see. How would it play out on the customer side? Jenny, do you know how it would look on their account? Because I don't think it's gonna. I think it would just remove it entirely. Yeah, because the statement only displays invoices that are unpaid for. So regardless of how the old invoices were paid for, they won't show up in the customer's statement.
No, they won't.
Okay, good. That's what I'm after. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, no problem. Any more, Jenny?
Not at this time.
Okay, I'm sure there will be, but let's go ahead and keep on moving here. Okay, so went through accepting and applying payments. Oh, we didn't apply the payments. We better do that here. Because it just gets confusing. I go a little fast. I operate in Paladin every day, and I go through this stuff, so sometimes I think people are following me, and I'm just blasting through because I'm kind of a little road runner once I get going here. So I want to slow down, make sure we pull up these screens, and make sure everyone's following along. So once we have accepted a payment, whether either F5 account payment or in the invoice quote module F5 account payment, once we have a customer pulled up, right? Then we can come over here to the customer's account and go to payment management. If you are doing balance forward, do not ever go into payment management because you still can go in and apply invoices to unpaid tickets, but you're really going to be double dipping on some things, and it's going to throw the accounting off. So if you're doing balance forward, don't do the open item method. Only do the open item method if you're doing open item, right? And we have to go in to apply these unpaid invoices. So over here on the right-hand side of my screen, I have a payment that I've accepted earlier. I went to go over, and this one's working out pretty well. I can see that this corresponds exactly with this $435.33 invoice. So I've selected my one on the right. I don't want to single click. I want to double click on that one. It just goes away. Now the credit invoice went away, and then the actual invoice went away as well because both of them were used up entirely. One was paid for entirely, one was used up entirely, so both of them are gone. I can always put the dot over here to show applied or show all to bring up any other ones, and I can see right here, hey, look at that, that 435.33 was applied. Same thing over here. You've also got your applied credit history down here that we can look at a little bit more detail, right? We can also put some notes in here as well. So make sure that we know what all these little things are doing in this screen. But once you've got it applied and it's gone, it's good. You're ready to go. That ticket has been paid for. It will no longer pop up on the customer's next statement because it's been paid for. Okay, now back to the slides here. Moving along. Okay, prompt payment discounts. So what is a prompt payment discount? Most of you probably know. It's usually just kind of an incentive lever. It's saying, hey, I can't have $200,000 out in the world right now. I need a modicum of liquidity. So please, I'm going to incentivize you to pay me on time. So pay me by the 10th of every month, let's say, and you can receive a discount. Now, as we already discussed, there's no place in Paladin to put the 10th. You can just say, this is what my prompt payment discount is. See where it says no prompt payment discount, and then 2 dots below that it says percentage. If you put the dot in the percentage, then you can go ahead and there's the 0 right next to there. You could, replace that 0 with whatever percentage you would like to give the customer as a prompt payment incentive discount. Prompt payments are a great way to incentivize your customers to get you to pay on time. Again, in my unicorn world of perfectness, I don't think that we should have to further incentivize customers to do what they've told you that they're going to do in the first place, which is pay off. You guys have extended them a line of credit and taken that risk onto your shoulders out of the generosity of your hearts, and I don't think that you should have to then further discount in order to get them to do what they told you that they would do. But my world's not always the real one here, so sometimes we do have to incentivize people to do that, and a prompt payment discount is a great way of doing that. Notice that we have that little respect minimum margin checkbox over there. Not every one of your items may be able to afford the 2% discount that you go ahead and extend. Maybe we're selling a lot of commodities. We have little tiny margins on those guys. Well, by checking that respect minimum margin, that'll say, hey, go ahead and discount this item. Give them a prompt payment discount. We want to incentivize them. But please never, on an item-by-item basis, look through those items and never discount an item past the point that I've told you to not do. And we have some webinars on minimum margin if you want to look and get some education on that and how to set that up and everything. So percentage, put your little number right there, respect minimum margin. This is in the customers module right here, so each customer can have a different prompt payment discount. Now, there is, and then when you accept the payment, I've got my little arrow over here over discount. You'll see the discount that the customer has earned will be displayed discount. And you can go ahead and just shuffle that over to the discount field, put it in there if you wish to give this customer the discount, and then check out. Now, trade discounts. Trade discounts are basically, you'll notice that when you select trade discounts, it kind of grays out the prompt payment discount because we don't want to double dip with discounts, right? We don't want to stack discounts. We want to do one or the other. So a trade discount would replace your prompt payment discount. You don't want to give both. And essentially, by clicking the trade discount, what that's doing is that's taking any pricing plan, any specific price structure that we've built and applied to that customer, and it's saying, hey, don't bill that at the invoice level. I want the invoice to be full price, but still apply that payment plan just to the statement. So the discount comes off of the statement, not up front. This happens. A lot of contractors want this because they may not want their employees to see what sort of discount they're getting, or perhaps they're bidding a job and they're giving the invoice to whomever they're billing it and they want to be paid full price. They don't want their customer to also get the discount that they've earned in the hardware store through all their years of loyalty and things like that. So trade discounts, just keep in mind that when Paladin says a trade discount, we are meaning taking a pricing plan that's applied and just discounting it off of the statement, not off of the invoice when the items are initially run up. However, for the most part, I really like upfront discounting. You know, pricing plans that come off the invoice for a few reasons. The easiest one being people like to see their discounts. When you're walking out, you look down at your receipt, you're like, hey, cool, save money right there. And two, when we return an item, if the discount's coming off the statement, many times we're going to return an item at full price. But if like a prompt payment discount, something like that, but if we're discounting the item at the invoice level, when we return that item, we're going to return it for the exact amount that that customer purchased it for at that exact time that they purchased it. So we never end up giving back more money than we ever took from the customer, right? For discounting, I mean, this is a whole nother webinar, and hey, look at that, it is a whole nother webinar. It's called Automating Sales, Promotions, and Trade Discounts. Charles did it a couple months ago, a really good one. Go ahead and watch that one for a little bit more on trade discounts and pricing plans and all that stuff and how to set it up. Okay, so the additional settings here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hop over to Paladin real fast just to show you guys where I'm talking about, because I don't have enough around this screen. I want to make sure that we're looking at the right spot. This credit right here, I'm in the customer module, in the credit tab with myself pulled up. right here. All these things right beneath it, that's what we're talking about. And you can see I've cut out just that little chunk right there, right? So default purchase order number to use. That sets a customer-specific purchase order number for the invoices. When you're ringing someone up, the clerk's going through. We hit a charge account. We put in the amount, and then we hit enter. It'll pop up and say, it'll need a signature as well, and it'll say PO number. Now, you can put a PO number in right there. You can have the customer do one-off there at the invoice, or you can have a default in there. If the customer goes, hey, I always want this specific number on all of these tickets, then you want to put it right there in the customer module, and it'll prompt it and fill up that PO number field with the number that you put in here and locked into place. Require PO on invoices. When you select that, that will prevent the clerk from moving beyond that little PO field when they're checking a customer out. It'll prevent them from even going past that without putting a value in there. Requires a PO. So if a customer, a lot of time your state offices, churches, or not churches, but schools, post offices, things like that, they will want a PO number in there, so we can go ahead and select that and require it. Apply service charge. When selected, late fee may be charged. You set up the service charge in the back office of Paladin. We're going to get into that here in a few minutes. Doing good on time, guys. I hope we all got a little bit extra time. I totally understand if we've only plotted out a half an hour and you guys have to go, but this topic is just vast, so I'm gonna take the time that it takes here and go a little bit beyond. We're gonna go into the background of Paladin and show you guys how to set those service charges here in a little bit. Ignore past due invoice hold. When selected, charges can be made when the customer account balance due is greater than the credit limit, right? So if they're running out, they don't have any more credit limit, their balance is greater than the credit line that you've offered them. With this selected, it'll say, I don't really care though. Continue allowing this customer to select, to process sales and add to that balance. And there's a little setting in the back office that we can kind of control that a little bit more. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. And then finally, we've got the authorized signers list. And then when selected, only signers authorized in the account can make those changes. So down there at the bottom, in fact, let's hop over to Paladin real quick. Let's talk about just a few things here. The first is match the authorized signers list. This is the authorized signers list. Projects and authorized signers. When you got a customer pulled up here in the customer module, F4 down at the bottom. Now we've got authorized signers. I'm not turned on for projects right now, so that's grayed out. That's okay. We're only talking about authorized signers. And we can say, Charles Owen, he's a pretty good guy. I've worked with him for a long time. He can go ahead and bring up things under my name. You finish that and you save it. Now when I go over to the invoice quote, I can bring myself up here. Go ahead and just bring up an item or two. And let's go ahead and just check out here. Now memo or PO number, that's where that goes, right? And if I would have had the require PO on invoices, there'd be a little asterisk right here, and it would prevent me from moving forward until there was something in this field. Exact same thing with authorized signers. We can now select Charles Owen, and we can go next. And then if I had a signature capture pad plugged into my laptop here, it would have asked me for a signature as well. As it doesn't, it's trying to create a PDF, but that's okay. I just wanted everyone to see where we were talking about in Paladin here. Okay, moving on. Okay, so a little bit more settings here. This is in the customer module. I'm actually going to go right back to Paladin just to kind of set the scene here and let you guys know where I'm talking about again. Because we were talking about these settings right here. Now we are talking about these settings right here. So not in the credit tab, we're in the customers tab now, way on the right-hand side, because there's a few accounts receivable pertinent settings there too. One of them is email statement copies. When that is selected and you generate statements at the end of the month, all the accounts that do have that selected, it'll just email. It won't even print them. Anyone who does not have that selected, it will print out, and now we've got a fold lick stamp. We can get as many of our customers to do this as possible. It is going to save you about $3 per statement per month that you can email as opposed to print, lick, stamp, and mail off. You guys' time is valuable. and we want to save it when in doubt. So if you can, I like even extending them, hey, pick a department. Pick your favorite department, Mr. Customer. I'm going to give you 5% off that department for the next 6 months. You can automate that in a pricing plan so it starts and then finishes in those 6 months and say, if you allow me to email you your statement copies, then I would go ahead and give you 5% off your favorite department for the next 6 months. I bet you'll come out on top in the long run, not having to do all that additional work. So I love emailing statement copies. Create month-end statement. This is simply for saying, hey, when I generate statements, I want you to create one for this customer here. If for some reason, let's say the store has an account, Hometown Hardware, we have made an account because sometimes we sell ourselves store supplies or whatever reason, but I don't need a statement. I know when I'm going to discount that away at the end and say store use items, in my note field. I don't need to print and waste paper for sending me a statement. So I would go ahead and just uncheck that for creating the month-end statement, right? And then the final one is for sales report to 1 invoice per page. The sales report that we're talking about is the transaction report. The transaction report, normally that guy puts about 3 or 4 invoices per page, depending on how many items are in there, how large the invoice is itself. By selecting this little box right here, it will force that report to 1 invoice per page. Same format, it doesn't revert back to the old format, it's still that smallish format, but it'll just do 1 per page if we want that for whatever reason. And then all of the invoices that are printed, if we're sending detailed statements, meaning that we not only send the first statement page, but also reprints of all of the pertinent invoices on that statement, then by checking this box, it would make sure that 1 of those invoices is per page on those reprints. Okay, next tab here, the Receivables tab in the Paladin configuration setup. Not everyone here may have access to this tab. This is at the top, the File Setup, and then Receivables. Again, I think that we should just hop over back into Paladin just to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about here, because we're getting a little bit into the nitty-gritties here. So File, Setup, Receivables. That's what we're talking about here. A whole lot of little check boxes. A lot of these guys are pretty cut and paste and self-explanatory when you read them, but a few of them are not. We're going to cover a few of those guys right now. Okay, so the top one on there is Enable Statement Generation. If this is not selected and you can't print statements, that's why you can't print statements, because you don't have statements enabled. However, this is a customer support interacting checkbox only. So if for some reason you have this box still unchecked, you cannot generate statements, you have to call us in order to get that to turn off for you. Lots of times when we're setting up a store and they haven't gone live yet, we don't want them going in and enabling the statements. For a lot of reasons, it can mess up some data in the back if we don't do them at the right time. So it's kind of a wall we've built to protect our customers from themselves. If you guys aren't generating statements, please call us. We would be happy to uncheck that for you, to check it for you. Invoicing hold when. This sets the past due grace period. It'll say past due 1, that means 30 days. Past due 2 is 60. And if this was the classroom, I would say, what does past due 3 mean? 90, right? We all get the pattern here. So that's saying if we have them set to past due 3, that's saying, hey, hold. Don't allow them to charge anything once their account is 90 days delinquent. They're 90 days late. Now, remember, there was that little checkbox in the customer module that we can disregard that. We can say, but I don't care. This is my brother, and I know that he's 60 days late, but I trust him explicitly, and we can go ahead and ignore the invoice hold past due, right? That was in the customer module, right into those additional settings that we were talking about. You can have it ignore this background overarching setting, because this is for every customer that in the file setup here. The stuff that we were talking about before was very much customer specific, just that customer. Okay, so service charge. This is where we go to set up the service charge. Kind of the industry standard that I found is about 1.5 to 2% right in there, and that's what it's going to use to calculate your late fee. On the default service charge min, this sets a minimum late charge amount. So this says that, I don't really care whatever. Let's say that they have $5 right? 2% of $5 is a tiny, tiny little amount, but that probably doesn't even cover the stamp that I'm going to put on there and send to them. So I want to have the default service charge min, regardless of what 2% of $5 is. I want to always charge at least $2.50 or at least 50 cents. I always want my stamp back or something like that. The minimum balance for a discount, that just sets the minimum late payment charge amount. Saying, hey, we need to have this amount in order to be applicable for a discount. The service charge grace amount, that is saying, hey, if the statement total is under X amount, call it $4.99, I don't even want to charge them a late fee. So that 2% that we have up there, disregard that when the statement total is under $4.99 or whatever amount that we put there. AKA, we don't really necessarily want someone to be like, dude, you charged me, $2.50 on the $2 that I owed you. Is there something we can do about this? Well, next time we can just set it up so that doesn't happen. We don't end up looking like a fool because we charged the customer more than their statement balance was in total in late fees, Okay, sending statements. Do we have any questions? Maybe I should stop for questions again. I've got just a few more slides. Let's just make sure that I'm not getting too far beyond someone's question. Jenny, do we have any questions?
Nope, no questions.
All right, look at you guys go. Good job. Okay, it's probably because I'm 45 minutes in and everybody's left here. I hope not. Okay, so sending statements. To generate the month-end statement for all of your customers in the reports module, go into the reports module, the accounts receivable section, then you select statement generation, and then over on the right-hand side, you will see month-end statement or mid-month statement. So a mid-month statement is just a one-off. You can say, hey, to this one customer, go ahead and give me a statement. Maybe he's going on vacation and said, hey, I'd like to make it right between us before I leave, as I'll be gone for a month or whatever reason. Because a lot of our accounts do that, right? So for whatever reason, you want to give a customer a mid-month statement right there. And what is that doing? Is that going to prevent that customer from receiving a statement at the end of the month? If he pays it fully, yes. But if he doesn't, then no, it's really not. It's just kind of a window. It's more like a snapshot into their account right then. Now, the month-end statements, that one is doing a whole lot of things. And in fact, let's hop over to Paladin here and look at some of the things that it's doing. And if you do anything wrong, if you incorrectly do a statement run at the end of the month, a lot of things, you just started a lot of balls into Paladin. We actually have to reverse that statement run, which I'll show you guys how to do here in a second, in order to go back and do that again. So it's a pretty permanent thing. We want you to be very deliberate when doing this. So let's do that. I'm in the Reports module. Under the Accounts Receivable section, it'll start off like this. You got to go Accounts Receivable and Statement Generation. Mid-month right here just allows me to select one customer, a few customers, and willy-nilly run a statement for them. Month-end statement, look at the things that it'll do here. Calculating your service charges, calculating your prompt payment discounts, building customer statements, the invoice reprints, the reports, emailing. It's going to do all these things. We actually want you to type in yes right here because we want this to be an extremely deliberate action. Please be intentional when you are sending your statements here. You can set statements include all activity prior to a certain date if you're trying to define a certain minute of the day as well, beyond your defined billing periods. How do we reverse a statement? Be very careful when you reverse statements. This is reversing all the statement runs that you did and shouldn't be done lightly. So make sure that you call us maybe to do it with you on the phone, or just make sure you're, again, very deliberate when you want to reverse a statement. But how we do it, go up here to Maintain, Accounts Receivable, and then we reverse statements. This will show you the statements by date that you have, and then you can go ahead and reverse one of those. Now, I believe it's going to ask for a admin password, and it'll say, whoa, you're about to undo everything that you did, so please make sure that you want me to do this before you do it. But that is how you do it. Okay, so a few reports here to wrap up. So to create a list of accounts that are overdue in the Reports module, in the Accounts Receivable section, click Cash Management, and then you can create a Past Due Action List report. These are just all the people that you should call and say, where's my money? We're sending Tony down. The next bullet point is to create and send late payment notifications to your customers. In the reports module, you go to the accounts receivable section, click cash management again, same process as the last report. Then you just hit late payment notices. This kind of generates like a customer-friendly late payment notice that you can then email to them. It just makes a PDF, so you can email PDFs, you can print them and send them again. It's just kind of a reminder that says, hey, you owe us some money, please make your account up to speed here. You can show there's a detailed and a summary accounting reports. These are just kind of giving you, there's some settings within those reports that says, hide accounts with zero balances, or maybe display accounts that have negative credits that we owe money them to, right? So you can kind of change how this report displays information. But this will show you a whole lot of stuff about your charge accounts and just all the charge accounts. If you're an accountant and you're needing the charge account information, take a look at one of the summary report, kind of consolidates everything down, or the detail report. It's a lot more details, and lots of times it'll pause for a second and go, do you really want to make this report? Because it's 40 pages long, and it might slow things down a little bit. And then if that happens, go ahead and either hit yes or just kind of define it down and maybe just pull up a couple customers worth of that information so you can kind of chew on that a little bit more as opposed to just pulling up the world of data and then having to look through this vast 40-page document. Okay. There are some portal documents that I've linked here about we're posting and reversing charge account payments to a balance forward statement, posting, applying, reverse report to an open item statement, about statements. The about, whenever you see an article saying about, that's not an article. That's an article of articles, right? That's saying, hey, here's all the articles that we have about statements. So there's probably 10 different articles in there of how-to things. So if you click on one of those guys or you go and just type in about statements on our portal, it'll bring up the about statements article that will then show you all of the articles about that topic that you have selected. Very good resource. Please use it. Jenny, any questions?
No, I don't see any popping up.
All right, excellent, guys. I know that I went about exactly 21 minutes too long here. I hope it's been a valuable use of everyone's time. And we've taken away some good stuff. If we have any follow-up questions, feel free to give customer support a call. Like I said, we have a whole department for training, so please use the resources that are available to you. And please join us next week. Jenny, do you know what the topic's going to be? I didn't take a look before I started here today because I forgot.
Yeah, I can tell you in just a second here because my computer decided to freeze on me.
Yeah, I've already taken 21 extra minutes. What's another 2, right?
Right, exactly. Naturally, my computer will go slow. So it's going to be, the title of it is What's a GMROI, which is Gross Margin Return on Investment. Charles is going to kind of talk about that and how to get you there, essentially. Excellent. And so just to kind of give him a little plug on the gross margin return on investment, the GMROI, how is that different than a margin? A margin is a great figure, but it's really an if-when statement. What will I make if, when this item sells? You have the best margin on an item, and it'll never put your kids to college if you never sell it. But gross margin return on investment, that equation shows you how much we have to spend and maintain the profit that we're actually making on the item. How often is it actually selling? So tune in next week. That'll be some good philosophy on adjusting our brains to look at our inventory as an investor as opposed to a margin hunter. All right, guys. As always, thanks so much appreciate your time. Tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great week.